Welcome to day 3 with Cadbury. So this is Joe working with Cadbury, starting to get him hopefully riding with a human on his back. That's the whole goal of bringing him down to Virginia, is to have their help with getting him started. And Joe is also preparing for going to a Colt start competition in Iowa next year. So that'll be super fun to support him at that. And so this is little Cadbury. So he started off with doing some more rope work around his belly to try to help him with being okay with the girth. And even though Joe is preparing to go to the Iowa Colt start, he's got lots of experience training horses, lots of Mustangs that he's gotten successfully riding under saddle. And then they've also taken some former bronc rodeo horses literally bred and been trained to buck people off at the rodeo. They were able to successfully restart them and get them as riding horses. So Joe and Jen are kind of a powerful duo that give the horses a lot of time, patience. They use positive reinforcement and definitely know what they're doing, but also really helping me out because I had my accident not quite 2 years ago yet, where I fractured my skull, had multiple brain hemorrhages, and I am at risk for a second concussion syndrome or a significant injury if I were to bonk my head again, especially in the first 6 months and then to the year. But if I can get past that 2-year mark of not doing anything super crazy, then that would be great. So it's really awesome to have such nice friends that are able to help me out and use methods of training that are similar to what I do with horses. They do some things a little bit different, but they definitely use positive reinforcement. They definitely give a lot of time and patience, and you're going to see that in this video as well. So it's such a great time to also hang out with my friends and get to do a few other things while we were down in Virginia with them. But here's a great example. Cadbury gets his cookie after doing a great job tolerating that rope around the belly, which is to help Cadbury understand that a girth is okay, that a person's leg in that spot is okay. And so Joe is purposely pulling on the rope a fair bit to help make sure that Cadbury's going to be able to tolerate that. And of course, I'm giving you little segments of the training. If you want to watch the full training of the process, Joe is putting a documentary series together of how he does all of this training, what the steps are, and what he's looking for. And so once that's ready, I'll put a link in the description, and you can definitely go and check that out. So here, another little highlight is picking up the hind legs, and you can see Cadbury still fires a little warning kick there. But I love that Joe doesn't do any type of punishment. He just kind of is patient, asks again, mostly just ignores that behavior. And this is a quality that is starting to gain traction in trainers, horsemen in the industry, but it's something that's still kind of newish because people think you have to hit a horse when they do things like that, but it adds emotion to the situation. It can cause the horses to become more fight or flight. So I love that Jen and Joe are on the same page as me there, that we don't punish Cadbury for, sometimes when he has emotional outbursts, and you're going to see a few in this video. So this is Joe getting on, and Cadbury goes, oh my gosh, predator on my back. And Joe doesn't hit him or anything. He just kind of waited for him to stand still, and then here he is going up on again. Kind of having that attitude of like, hey, like, you can do this. Like, you're going to be okay. We can do this. And I love how he just takes more time. So like here, he just really pauses. He even offers Cadbury a cookie here to be like, hey, buddy, like, you can have a cookie. We're going to be okay. And he's just sitting up there. He's going slowly. And it's interesting with horses when you're training, like, you want to go slow and yet not too slow, because then what can happen is you can come across as being very sneaky. So you want to have that, like, yeah, this is going to be no problem. Like, let's go ahead and just get on there. Yeah, I'm up here. You get a cookie. And so you want to kind of end before they have a super big reaction, but you want to be present. And it takes a lot of time and feeling practice before you realize what a horse needs in terms of how quickly. But it's very fair for the horse to have some emotional outbursts or moments where they feel overwhelmed. It's going to happen sometimes, especially Joe doesn't know Cadbury super well, in the sense of I'm the one that did all of his taming and gentling, taught him how to lead, did his first touches, all that kind of thing coming out of the wild. So he doesn't have the same rapport with Cadbury, but I think he's doing overall a really great job in terms of trying to be respectful of Cadbury's thresholds and politely pushing him and progressing him without being mean to him. So here he goes to get on him. And then what happened there is if you go back slow and you'll kind of see it, the other times that he was getting on Cadbury, he was closer to the wither. And that time he was a little bit closer to his butt. And then it caused Cadbury to trigger. And then we're going to see that again in a little bit. So here Joe is really trying to just desensitize that area. So he's like, okay, I'm going to try to rub on this butt and see if we can help him be okay. See how he's testing out the different spots. And there he kind of swung off. He was trying to swing off before Cadbury got overwhelmed, and Cadbury's like, oh no, you touched that same spot again. And horses, they have different trigger spots. You discover them as you're working through it, which is one of the reasons why it's important to do a lot of these steps, because before you're committed foot in the stirrup, you can kind of figure out, okay, like what's bothering you? Let me help you through these different pieces. And once you have a saddle on and you've got your feet in the stirrups, it's not as ideal as what Joe's doing. Like he's super fit and agile. I'm like, oh my gosh, look at all these times that he is jumping up and down on Cadbury. I don't think I can do that. You got to be super fit, super strong to be able to be agile and just spring up and spring on. He's making it look so easy. When you actually go out and try this with a horse, it is not that easy. But when you have a saddle with a stirrup, there is the risk that your foot could get caught in the stirrup and you could get dragged. Especially, I don't know why Western stirrups, it's not standard to have like a safety stirrup that clips. For English stirrups, there's lots of options to have safety stirrups, but for Western, it's not as common. But Western saddles are the go-to for starting horses because they've got a nice deep seat and the big pommel up top. So if you want to have a hand on that and brace yourself, you can. So it's a little bit more comforting than having an English saddle, but in the other side of things, if you've got an English saddle, you could easily fall off and roll, which is a good thing because you want to be able to get free of the horse if you need to, whereas the Western saddle kind of holds you in. So there he was starting to move Cadbury, and Cadbury's like, oh my gosh, move with a human. And I love how Joe just kind of springs back on. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, wow. Which that is one of the ways that we do things a little differently. So Joe's used to doing a lot of the pieces by himself, whereas for me, like I would have somebody leading me. If you look back on a lot of my videos, I have somebody leading and feeding cookies is a process that I tend to use. And I do start after using the mounting block and kind of going over and doing a lot of these pieces like what Joe's doing here, kind of leaning over the horse before putting a leg over. I do from the mounting block. Sometimes I'll do it from the ground as well because I think it's good for the horse to feel your weight shifting, but then I do go to the saddle and do that process just slightly differently, but lots of respect here for Joe and his ability to just spring up and down on the horse and doing a great job. And I love, like, here's a little example of how sometimes when Cadbury feels overwhelmed, Joe really takes his time and just sits. So this time I thought, okay, I'll share with you in the video a full clip of him just kind of chilling and hanging out with Cadbury. The rest of the video, I tend to pull all of these clips out of him just sitting and taking a lot of time because I don't want you to be just watching a horse standing there for a very long time and thinking, geez, this is like a boring video. But he took a long time to just sit and wait. He's doing a lot of rubbing with Cadbury. Cadbury does a nice little turn to the left. He's guiding him, bending him left. Things go pretty well here with this walking to the left circle. So he's like, okay, like now I can sit up and just sit on you while we walk. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Cadbury's riding. Like he's turning left. You can see a little bit of tightness in his body there. But what's interesting here, so he stops and he's going to get his little cookie out. Things are going pretty well. And it's like, okay, you got a cookie. So you would think, okay, like this is pretty good. And then when he goes to turn right, which is interesting, Cadbury just explodes. Even though he had that cookie and he had a moment to pause, Cadbury just had a, oh my gosh. But then you can see Cadbury stops and looks at Joe and is kind of like not scared of Joe. He was scared and overwhelmed in the moment, but he knows like Joe's not going to get really mad at him and punish him or something in the moment. So Joe gets on and he rides another circle to the left. And you can see Cadbury's like, he's pretty much got it. Like, yeah, he's paying attention. You might be like, why is he swatting his tail? Well, the bugs are actually kind of super annoying. So that's more bug related than anything else. I was swatting the same way, and if you look at the other horse that you can see in the video, you can see their tails also going a fair bit too, and also stomping. And so he rides a little circle to the left, and then he's like, okay, you know what, we're going to leave it there, the riding to the left, and then we're going to save riding to the right after we sort out the saddle stuff. So we put on the saddle, take our time doing that, give the cookie, and Cadbury goes, what is this girth thing? And he's like, oh my gosh, this is so hard. Even though he's had a lot of preparation work with that rope around the belly to try to help him with that girth sensation, he still finds it really tight and overwhelming. Look at this. I mean, like, you got to kind of laugh a little bit to be like, oh my gosh, Cadbury, you are really trying to explore what this girth means. And who knows, maybe he's thinking he's trying to lift his back, so he's exploring how to move a little bit differently. So Joe kind of moves him forward out of it. You can see Joe canters, encouraging Cadbury to canter, and we do get some nice canter going, which is great. But overall, Cadbury needs to get comfortable with the sensation of something being around his belly and realize that it's not going to eat him. And then sometimes, even though he would canter just fine, he then goes on to these full-on bronching moments. So we add in the jump there for him to interrupt his thought pattern, try to break that up, and also give him a bit of a productive burst of energy, let him feel going into that saddle a little bit better, doing a few little jumps. And when he does it kind of nice and quietly, Joe brings him back in for some rest and cookie, and try to praise him for figuring that out. And then this is Jen working with Cadbury. So we're moving through all the different little pieces of getting him ready for riding, and Joe was able to ride him in those walking circles to the left, but we've got to get him comfortable before attempting that right side again. And so here's a little example too, where he was moving around pretty good, and then all of a sudden he'll just throw in another little buck with that cinch related discomfort that he's expressing there. And the reason why Jen's working with him now is because Jen will be the ground person if or when Joe gets on Cadbury. So it's important for him to know who Jen is, to be comfortable with Jen, for Jen to know what Cadbury's buttons are for turning him left and right. And it started off kind of fast and full, and then were able to kind of understand each other a little bit better, and it starts to get a lot softer. And so she's making those changes of directions. You can see Cadbury's trot now has slowed down, and he's like, oh, okay, I understand this human now better, the stop, the face, and she's able to let him think. So it's looking a lot softer. So then they progress to putting the lead rope on, and even after like all of that, what happened there was, as she kind of went forward to him, he must have lifted his back and then felt the cinch again funny. And you can see he had a moment of like, what is this weird cinch on my back again? So she, just calmly gets him going forward again. So there's no punishment for him feeling a little bit like, what is this thing around my belly? But I included a bunch of those clips of, even though they're not Cadbury's best moments, so you can see how much work, time, and patience is going into supporting Cadbury. And the other part that I'm not showing the whole time is we give him lots of breaks where he stops and gets water and he gets to have food. I'll show you one of those towards the end of the video where he just gets to wear the saddle and develop that comfort a little bit. So there's been a lot of preparation, a lot of rest, a lot of reward, and then for whatever reason, that's the thing that he's struggling with. So a lot of horses would probably be more confident with the saddle at this point and the girth on their belly. So he's taking a little longer here. But in fairness to Cadbury, a lot of the other pieces he's learning really quickly. And he's figuring out a lot of different cues, and he's done a great job of just coming down to Virginia and learning lots of different things. So that's okay, buddy. We're going to help you out with figuring out that this girth is actually okay. And girths are needed no matter what saddle you've got on a horse's back, whether it's English or Western. You do need to be able to have a girth. And there is a back cinch on this saddle. However, it is pretty loose-ish. Like if you see it, it's not actually touching his belly, and it does have the little strap that keeps it forward and out of the super sensitive zone that most horses find. But Jen here is working on getting him to just walk and be calm, being able to disengage him, so that way when Joe is ready to get on again, but this time with a saddle, making sure that he'll be calm and confident with that process and being able to do both the left and the right. And who knows, maybe the reason why he had a really hard time doing the circle to the right with Joe and exploded up into that rear, maybe that was because he needed more processing time after doing the left circle, or maybe it was something that he felt, because we know that Cadbury has been more sensitive on his left side, or not, I shouldn't say sensitive, he hasn't had as much confidence on his left side. So maybe by turning to the right, he felt the left side even more. Who knows? We're going to discover more as he continues his training down here in Virginia with the whole team. And this is just a little clip to show you that sometimes, like, we stop, he gets a bucket of water, he gets his hay, and he's still got the saddle on to just try to develop some of that positive association, meaning like the saddle's no big deal. It's on your back. Here's your food. Here's your water. Take a break. Enjoy some company from the buddy there. And then we do another session moving him around, trying to help him realize that this is all going to be a lot of fun to do together. So let us know what you think. Remember to subscribe and check out harmonyhorsemanship.com for even more learning.